quick wrap-up. Yeah,
I'm not so convinced about that because, you know, New Hampshire is an extension of Massachusetts. And in fact, the type of people, you know, someone who
right now getting angry tweets and emails from the people of the Granite State.
Well, I mean, but no, when you talk about, you know, Manchester and the southern part of New Hampshire, there's a lot of people who've moved out of Massachusetts who are basically Mitt Romney-style Republicans. Right. And so I think, you know, I don't think he's going to get the same credit. And nor should he, because in some ways it's his home state. I mean, it's as close to his home state as you could probably find. And so I think he's going to have to really win in a dramatic fashion there to get any real bounce, because everybody's looking to whether or not what he can do in South Carolina.
If you're just joining us, and why wouldn't you be just joining us, turning on the television at 2:36 a.m., Mitt Romney is the apparent winner of the 2012 Iowa GOP caucus. It appears he will get 11 of the state's 25 delegates. Rick Santorum, who came in just a few votes behind him, will also get 11 delegates, it appears. Ramesh, the other, as we go forward, we have New Hampshire next week, and then after that, the next one is South Carolina. South Carolina has a very good track record of picking the actual winner. The other sort of variable that's in play in the next election is the fact that Jon Huntsman is now sort of a factor. He wasn't really a factor in Iowa. There were jokes. I said earlier the Ron Paul campaign had done a little trash talking directed at Jon Huntsman by telling him they had found the one voter who supported him. Oh, there are the vote totals. Romney at 25%, 30,000 votes, 30,015 votes. Rick Santorum, 30,007 votes. So that's an 8-vote margin. Romney squeaking it out, it appears. But Ramesh, do you think Huntsman is the one candidate, I think we could say at this point, with the exception of Buddy Roemer, who's also declared in the field, who I've had as a guest on Up with Chris Hayes, and Gary Johnson, who is also declared in the field, and I've also had as a guest on Up. Shockingly, people who are guests on Up don't do great in the Republican primary field. You'll be shocked to know.
I'm not running.
But yeah, exactly. But with those exceptions, in terms of the candidates who have been reliably on stage, say, at the debates, the only one who has not gotten their bump, has not gotten their turn to be the anti-Mitt Romney, I would say, is Jon Huntsman.
Right.
And the question is Huntsmentum in our future?
Well, lots of rules have exceptions, Chris, and Huntsman could be the exception, the one guy in the race who never does get a bump. I do think the drama here is now going to be Santorum versus Romney, with a little bit of Gingrich revenge drama added in. Yeah. And I think it might be hard for Huntsman to jump into this. I think there's going to be a tendency on the part of reporters to want the story to be a Santorum versus Romney thing, to make it a kind of, you know, because that seems to be a fight, somebody who's actually dueled with Romney and held him to almost a defeat. So if you're Huntsman, I don't think you can count even on being a factor in New Hampshire, let alone, you know, winning it, which he has to do.
Is there enough of a distinction between Romney and Huntsman, at least on the surface, for him to even play that role? I don't.
Well, Huntsman speaks better Mandarin. I mean,
and Huntsman worked for President Obama.
Right.
Well, I mean, I guess, but that's the point.
Right.
Is that I think, you know, from the Republican voter perspective, the idea that there's a guy to the left of Romney is not necessarily the best thing to put.
Although oddly, his record is to the right of Romney.
Yeah, right. Well, expound on that, right? Because there's a world of conservative writers and intellectuals, and some of whom I read and follow on Twitter, who are maddened by the fact that Huntsman has been pigeonholed as a squish, that he's been pigeonholed as a crypto liberal, when in fact he has a more, and he does have a more, I would say, fair to say, a more conservative record than Mitt Romney does.
Cut taxes, fought for school choice, never did anything remotely resembling Romney care in Utah. He's been pro-life. You look at this record, and he's also been a Republican for all this time. It's a pretty conservative record. What happened, though, was that early in this campaign, from 2009 onward, I think, when he took that job with President Obama as ambassador to China, and also his fundamental critique of the party was that it's too far to the right and it's only going to succeed by going left. And of course, the party as a whole totally goes the other way, totally goes further right. And so he's left in this position where when he starts the campaign, sort of all the mood music of it is, this is the moderate guy who's going to save the party from these right-wing know-nothings. And conservative grassroots folks just resented the heck out of that kind of message.
People don't like being called know-nothings. What's that?
They booed Rockefeller for that.
Right,
I
yeah,
mean,
that's right.
you know, that sort
Nelson
of.
Rockefeller, of course.
Right, but there were real political
But there were
differences.
Rockefeller Republicans back then.
That was my point about Perry, is that I don't think the Republican base is looking at policy. I think the Republican base is looking at who is going to have the most sort of vitriolic rhetoric towards President Obama.
But I also think they're looking at electability, because I think there's been some good reports out of Iowa talking about going to Romney events and talking to the Romney voters, and some of the Romney voters are the most vitriol. I mean, you have people who are Romney voters who want to see the birth certificate, and
Like his son.
Right, but if you, Jon Huntsman probably in a world where you didn't have that mentality probably has the best chance.
Once again, former governor of Massachusetts, Mitt Romney, the apparent winner of the 2012 Iowa GOP caucuses by the whopping margin of 8 votes over former senator from Pennsylvania, Rick Santorum. We'll be back to take a look at what these numbers mean and draw some lessons from the night after this.
When the financial system and the banks blew up at the end of the Bush presidency, that left our country in the worst economic hole we have been in since the Great Depression. Unemployment, businesses failing, the poverty numbers. Well, one silver lining, actually, in the poverty numbers is older Americans. Older Americans, relatively speaking, are doing okay, even in these hard times. And that's because of Social Security, which is not a Ponzi scheme. It is not bankrupting us. It is not an outrage. It is working.
Are your teeth less than perfect? Would you love to transform your looks with a Hollywood smile makeover? Well, creating a stunning Hollywood smile could cost as much as $10,000 and involve drilling, shots, and having your teeth ground down to stumps. But now there's an incredible breakthrough in dental technology. It's Snap-on Smile, an ultra-thin, professional dental product that's custom-made to give you an instant, removable, stunningly white, natural-looking smile. All it takes is 2 brief dentist visits, and you even get to choose your new smile's shape and shade. There's no grinding, no drilling, no shots, and no pain.
Snap-on Smile can be fitted in 2 visits. It's easy, painless, and beautiful.
Look, both these ladies had smile makeovers. One cost almost $10,000. The other has a Snap-on Smile. Can you tell which is which? Then why pay thousands?
I got my Snap-on Smile more than 2 years ago, and I wear it every day.
I've had Snap-on Smile for 4 years, and it still looks beautiful.
Snap-on's great for special occasions like weddings, job interviews, or vacations. You can eat, drink, and wear it all day, every day. Snap-on Smile transforms this to this to this, or even this to this. Call your dentist today and ask how you can get a stunningly white, beautiful new Snap-on Smile for less than you could ever imagine. Don't have a regular dentist? Just visit snaponsmile.com and we'll give you details of the Snap-on Smile dentists in your area. Don't put it off any longer. You could be showing off your own perfectly white, natural-looking smile in no time. Call your dentist today and ask how you can get an affordable Snap-on Smile started. Or go online and get details of the Snap-on Smile dentists in your area. Do it today. Call the number on your screen or visit snaponsmile.com.
So has anybody actually started saving for college yet?
Oh, not me. No, you got time.
Oh, no, we actually started.
Yeah, but how did you even know where to start?
Oh, I found out about the Gerber Life College Plan.
Call now and get started with free information on the Gerber Life College Plan.
Oh, it's a life insurance policy, too.
Oh, that's different.
It's pretty much where I agree.
No matter what happens, we get guaranteed safe growth.
We've got to get started.
Call 1-800-887-0174 for your free information.
Attention Fosamax users. The FDA has warned that the drug Fosamax has been linked to low-energy femur fractures. If you've taken the drug Fosamax and suffered an unexplained thigh fracture, call the Reliant Group right now to be connected with an experienced attorney for a free consultation and to see if you may qualify for financial compensation. You don't owe us a penny unless we're successful. If you or a loved one has taken Fosamax and suffered a thigh fracture,
call the Reliant Group at 800-236-1083.
Mitt Romney is the apparent winner of the 2012 Iowa GOP caucus in the first official voting of this already long campaign season. Mitt Romney with 30,015 votes to Rick Santorum's 30,007 votes, an 8-vote margin separating the two. Rick Santorum with a late surge in the voting. He was polling in third place in the Des Moines Register poll, but it looked like there was a lot of late movement in his direction, and we've seen that borne out. In third place, Ron Paul comes in with 21%. Behind him, Gingrich, Perry, and the rest of the field. Mitt Romney came on. He was the last candidate to speak. Do we have Mitt Romney? All right. Mitt Romney was the last candidate to speak tonight. As Sam said earlier, they had the teleprompters out. They took the teleprompters down. Rick Santorum came out and I thought gave a really good speech. For Rick Santorum, it was a huge opportunity. He has not gotten a lot of what is called in the business earned media, right? He has not gotten a lot of attention. People don't necessarily know who Rick Santorum is or what he stands for, and he took it as an opportunity. It was almost like his speech tonight reminded me almost of like a convention speech. Yeah. The convention speech is like always about your hardworking, forefathers and your grandfather who lived the American dream. Yep. And so he gave, I thought, a very effective speech. He talked about the immigrant experience that was in his family, and I think it was a grandfather who came over from Italy to work in the coal fields in Pennsylvania, and really introduced himself. And then Mitt Romney came out and I thought gave a somewhat antic speech. He seemed kind of, I should say this, I'm a little antic myself. My hands are moving around. I'm always over caffeinated, so pot to kettle, stipulated. But he gave, I thought, a little bit of an antic speech. And it didn't, again, it had this sort of essential lack of soul. I think Chris Matthews said that it seemed like he was peddling merchandise. It seemed soulless. Melissa, what was your impression of the contrast between those two?
Oh yeah, I would agree. Look, Santorum had his opportunity right in that moment, and he took it. Here's my sort of immigrant story. Here's my hardworking story. Here's my family. Here's my understanding of the human condition based on the experience of my children. Here, he really for that moment said a lot. Now. He said a lot in that moment, and so the fact is, it now becomes part of the record that will undoubtedly end up getting vetted going forward.
Including praising the economic model of Walmart as a solution to outsourcing.
Not just the economic model, but saying that that's going to be our answer to
the loss of manufacturing
China.
jobs, right?
When
which I
of
thought
course
was
we
a
know
strange note to strike.
Yeah, particularly because Walmart is in part pushing the outsourcing. Maybe, as you were pointing out, they can't outsource.
Right, you can't outsource the greeters.
Right.
Yes, and the people who work in the registers there is, I think, his argument.
But what's interesting to me about the Santorum campaign themes, and the one that Ed Schultz was talking about on our air tonight, and the one that has gotten the least attention, is married to a very sort of, I think, fairly standard litany of social conservative issues, and a fairly standard neoconservative line on foreign policy, and very bellicose rhetoric towards Iran, is this sort of focus on manufacturing. And the actual policy details of that I find to be really bad policy, but as campaign thematics, it's, I think, smart. It's a smart place for Republicans to be in. It's very much pitched towards blue-collar voters, particularly in states like Ohio and Pennsylvania, in which the president has a lot of support has eroded because the economy's in bad shape.
It's a smart place to be in the general. But I think it's going to be a vulnerability if Romney decides to go after him. And that's going to have some pretty tricky implications for Romney if he ends up being the nominee. Because if he does have to attack Santorum in that way, because the difference between Romney and Santorum, Romney has been pretty good about talking about, at least in a very general way, jobs.
Right.
He's been saying the word jobs.
Right.
And
he's been relatively disciplined about this. They understand that this is the way that they're going to win.
And
if they're going to win,
he has to go after Santorum on that, they're going to have to draw some lines there, because he's going to have to argue that Santorum is not a fiscal conservative, and that's going to paint Romney into a box.
That's interesting.
And I think it's going to be problematic for him in the general.
That's interesting. You can see Romney trying to essentially get to Santorum's right on this issue, on industrial policy, on manufacturing, etc.
Yeah. He's going to try and avoid, I think, dealing with Santorum for as long as he can. But at one point, he may have to deal with it.
One of the things you see, this is an interesting dynamic, talking to the staff about this, you don't see negative ads in other domains. You don't see Huggies going after Pampers, right? You don't see negative ads among products. And usually that's because there's enough competition, there are enough choices, that trashing one of your competitors only means that people are going to have a strange view of you, and they're probably going to go to one of the others. As the field narrows in politics, that's when negative ads become more and more efficacious. Here is Romney taking a largely positive cast in his I guess it was a victory speech prematurely tonight.
You are working and I am working and we're all working together because of our passion for this country and our concern that it's being led by a president who may be a nice guy but just is over his head.